what is it about this generation that you find so intriguing? And what are some of the defining features? I think sometimes when we talk about these generational cohorts, we sort of approach them as these monoliths, which they're not. Like, not all Gen Z consumers are motivated by the same things.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you are making like an excellent point here, because it is true. It is a fundamental mistake to say, oh, all Gen Z are like this or all millennials are like that. However, what is very important with the generational research is that it allows us to identify some major themes that describe this generation. And by understanding these themes, topics, issues, it enables us to imagine a future. And if we can imagine a future, we can actually prepare for it. And I think that's really is the value of generational research. So when I say, oh, Gen Z is like this, Gen Z is like that, unless it's kind of a real number, like they are the most diverse generation, 48% are minorities. So that's kind of is not arguable. But when we talk about behaviors, it's very hard to say all Gen Z is like that or all millennials are like this. And I think we have to just to remember that we need to consider the directions that they are going to allow us to prepare and engage. So in terms of the defining characteristic, as I say, it's the most diverse generation. It's also the most connected generation. 87% of Gen Z had access to cell phone before they were 15 years old. And that has a huge influence on how they think, how they process information, how they communicate, and so on and so forth. The third thing is that because of that access to information and to what's happening around them in the world, they turn out to be the very engaged generation, more than we have seen before. They are more aware of what's happening around them and what's happening around them in the world. And they are more inclined to question, like, why something is happening and what can I do in this world, which is why we see them, demonstrating and rising up for, to the occasion when they see injustice, and they really so aware and so focused on creating something different for themselves that I think that's becoming a major characteristic of these generations. And I think the other thing about them is that because of their level of engagement, because of the way they know how to use technology, their ability to influence is much greater than previous generation. And I think that's one of the reasons why understanding Gen Z is a business imperative, because I always say what's happening with Gen Z, never stay with Gen Z. As they adapt new tools and behaviors and new ideas, those trickle up and spread to other generations. So very soon you kind of see millennials and Gen X and even Boomer starting to adopt certain behaviors and certain ideas. So we need to understand that cohort because it has greater influence.